I've actually been getting a ton of Bretonnian replays sent to me, which certainly I'm not complaining about, and actually does surprise me a little bit. I didn't think too many people would play them in Immortal Empires, given that they didn't really receive any direct buffs, and quite a few other factions did, but here we are today. This replay featuring Raponce versus Tzeentch, sent in by Boojilicious, which is a great name, by the way, on Discord. And yeah, it's Raponce, and we've got some Grail Guardians, companions of Cornell as well. So nice little buff blob potential with some heavy cavalry there, some Knights of the Realm, men-at-arms with shields up front. We've got some spearmen at arms with shields on the sides, some mobs scattered around as well, just for some extra bodies. Now on the Tzeentch side, for the starting army, looks like a Flying Herald up in the air. Classic double Furies here, double Screamers, a couple of Halberds as well, so plenty of anti-large AP. Some Marauder Spears, yeah, some Marauders, regular Marauders, Sword and Board through the center. Let's take a look at the reserve armies. For Bretonnia's reserves, we've got a Damsel Lore of Life, 4 Knights Errant, 2 Foot Squires, 2 Battle Pilgrims, 5 Archers, including 2 Pox Arrows, and 2 more Mobs. For Tzeentch reinforcements, 2 more Halberds, pretty smart choice. A couple of Flamers, 3 Tank Horrors, 2 Marauder Horsemen of Tzeentch, 1 Fury, 2 Blue Horrors, and 1 Spearman. And here we are. So interesting to see Lore of Tzeentch dude here. You haven't seen him in quite some time, but is quite good at just sniping characters with this blue fire. The chromatic tome giving him extra winds of magic as well. It's quite strong. Can of course yeah, get even more power recharge with this Locus of Conjuration. Raponce, on the other hand, is just, you know, melee fighter horse lady who is going to buff her Bretonnian cavalry with a very nice plus 10 melee defense, plus 8 melee attack. Very good for grinding on an objective, although arguably it's better to just go with the Feinchantress for the direct damage of the Mortis effect that she has, essentially, the Miss of the Lady. But nice charge, Knights of the Realm straight into the center. Tzeentch Halberds are going to respond. Of course, it certainly is enough to break the barrier and deal some significant damage to those Tzeentch Marauders, but should be pulling away relatively shortly. Looks like they're going to pull out an Infernal Gateway as well from Tzeentch. It's kind of their stand-in for Pit of Shades, of course, right now, and does a significant amount of damage to those Knights of the Realm. Basically just KOs the unit, but also ends up doing a significant amount of friendly damage to this one Tzeentch Halberd as well. These other Knights of the Realm sweep up and around. Quick rear charge should be able to dispatch those Marauders. And then here comes the big blob. Since Infernal Gateway is now on cooldown, the Bretonnians can deploy this blob without fearing that it will get nuked by that very big, expensive spell. Companions of Cornell going to charge in here, beautifully so, and the men-at-arms also just fighting it out with the Tzeentch horsemen there. A lot of Tzeentch dudes just all over the place. Of course, capture weight of all these men-at-arms and peasant mobs is terrible, so Tzeentch is going to take an early lead on objective secure, but both players just kind of scrapping right now, attempting to value trade well. Tzeentch Halberds get way too far forward and are going to get collapsed by a bunch of units and just leadership broken. Unfortunate situation for them, but the Grail Guardians companions come back to vanquish some demons. Certainly the Grail Guardians will directly counter even the Screamers. Screamers' magic attacks and anti-large will only do so much against the very high defense of the Grail Guardians, and their own magic damage will of course cut through the demons' physical resistance. They're going to be a great pick here in just clearing out a lot of those lighter demon units and just tanking them straight. Also, you know, the fire resistance of the companions does make them somewhat impervious to the shooting of Tzeentch. You certainly don't want to be just taking lots of shots in the face, given how expensive they are, but every extra little bit does help in that type of a situation. Yeah, direct support there. Grail Guardians, let's see, with Raponce fighting up to 44-68 melee defense. I mean, certainly, even though the Screamers are anti-large, 25 bonus versus large puts them at, what, 51 attack? Still not even close to enough to have a good hit chance against that fat 68 defense of the Grail Guardians. So I'd love to see that. Tzeentch takes a pretty decisive L on that engagement, just in general, and the slow cap of the peasant mobs on the side here is going to be counteracted by a single halberd. They'll be able to significantly outcap even both of these units, I believe, but we'll see. Men-at-arms going to pile in there and Now, even as things are going right now, Bretonnia certainly is amassing cavalry force and come retake the center objective relatively easily, but right now, a little bit of overextension coming from the king of overextension. This is definitely that, but even still, it's Grail Guardian overextension, so into blues and flamers, they will go relatively safe from these low-tier melee units, more shooting units than anything. I mean, certainly there's a lot of blues here, and just by model count, it's going to be relatively dangerous, but like the flamers, I mean, 28 attack is going to do very little to the 69 defense now. They've ranked up one time, getting up to the nicest 69 melee defense there. Furies do come in, though, and they start to break up some of these peasant bowmen, kind of disrupt this Bretonnian presence in the center. But lots of reinforcements coming in for Bretonnia, and they are a couple of foot squires and some peasant bowmen. Foot squires going to trade very nicely with those warriors of Tzeentch, especially 2v1. They're able to get a nice isolation there. But eventually the Grail Guardians do get pushed back. Tzeentch gets his positioning together, and the Flamers unleash unholy warp fire all over those Grail Guardians. That's not going to be good for them. They immediately flee the scene, or rather tactically retreat, bravely run away, you might say. And, yeah, reunite there with the companions. They're perhaps going to come back and crush this Marauder Spear, threatening that objective. Finally, Bretonnia is able to secure this high ground objective with the peasants and whatnot. Just kidding, flips back over to Tzeentch. That was a little bit odd there. But, yeah, both players scrapping in the center objective and just all over the battlefield. Honestly, Grail Guardians turn around with the Flamers now distracted going after the center objective. They can come crush these Marauders there, and then the buff here. Let's check out peasant mobs with that buff. Up to 26 attack and 20 defense. They're actually good enough that they can kind of trade okay with these Marauder Horsemen, and that's the power of Rapunz to elevate your other troops. She's also up to 600 weapon strength right now with something. What was that? The Sword of Lyonesse active. Definitely makes her an incredibly scary combatant for a limited amount of time. Look at this. More collapse from the Grail Guardians coming through, just chasing after the Flamers. Certainly wanting vengeance for their roasted companions out there in the field. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the greatest idea. They do get counteracted directly by some Screamers with a little rear charge there, and that'll probably be the last of them. Perhaps not. Shield of Thorns giving them some damage reflection, so any units that do attack animations onto them are going to take some damage in return, and the companions rush to their aid. Not wanting the Grail Guardian sacrifice to be in vain, they pile in here. The Grail Guardians down to barely 9 unit models and dropping, but still the Bretonnian cavalry surges forward and blocks Tzeentch from even getting to the deployment, while the Damsel and the peasant bowmen are able to secure there. Meanwhile, over here, I'm missing an Infernal Gateway, blasting another Foot Squire, but again, also blasts the friendly Tzeentch units. Let's get in close and watch these guys. Foot Squires, oh man, with the pyramid in the background. How's that for a cinematic shot? Foot Squires duking it out with these Tzeentch warriors, with some of the bougiest cloaks I've ever seen. Bougelicious might have something to say about that, but anyway, super cost-efficient trade for the Foot Squires, even if it's not necessarily the best. Got some Marauder Horsemen also coming over to support, though, and the Herald is going to be pulled back. Interesting. Not really sure why you would retreat the Herald there. Maybe he just barely was about to run out of ammunition, but in terms of Winds of Magic, I don't think Tzeentch would be out at this point. Maybe. Yeah, he dropped a couple of big Infernal Gateways, quite a few blue and pink fires, so interesting. Anyway, at this point, the Chaos Halberds are going to try and hold out. Knights Errant really won't do a lot to those Halberd infantry. They'll at least disrupt them, though, and try and keep them off of that objective momentarily. Up on the high ground, this objective is starting to fall to Bretonnia as the Tzeentch Halberds just grind it out. They are definitely being threatened here by the companions of Quenelle. Peasants also playing catch with the Tzeentch Horsemen is a very cost-effective use of said peasants, allowing the companions to not take those flaming javelins to the face, although they would be less effective, and allowing them to come in with a rear charge, Shield of Thorns as well on those Foot Squires to once again give them some damage reflection, and that's going to be the end for those Tzeentch Halberds. They also get blinded. Great use of that that little explosion here. What is it? The Halo of Maidenly Wrath gives a blinded debuff, which will directly nerf the attack defense stats of a unit that it hits. So really nice use of Rapunzel's abilities here, and at this point, Tzeentch is pretty far behind the curve. There's a fat triple cap from Bretonnia, and I guess not technically. This objective here is still slightly under Tzeentch's control somehow. Doesn't make sense to me, but yeah, now there we go. There's a full triple cap, and I don't see Tzeentch being able to amass enough resources to really take an objective back here, especially with more Knights Errant coming out to screen out these Furies. Tzeentch has kind of fallen into a trap that I myself am guilty of, which is just feel like you need more units on the field, so you end up spending a lot on flying Vanguard units that can't capture, and you end up in a situation like this where even though these Furies might be able to actually come in and start to break some of these units, we've got some Pilgrims online on Objective 3, the higher leadership and higher stats. They'll be able to hold out just fine against Furies and, you know, Screamers and such. Will obviously provide some full capture weight of regular infantry, which is not the case obviously for any of these flying units. Companions also still online with Rapunzel, great swords out, charging through, just punishing these Tzeentch horsemen. No, just kidding, they're going to get retreated. So they'll leave Rapunzel do the heavy lifting here, and she certainly will. Knights Errant, beautiful trap and collapse there. Just crushing these Tzeentch horsemen. It's been some excellent Bretonnian play, I must say. Bretonnia is one of those factions that rewards good micro. When you've got, you know, a lot of cavalry units that you need to use effectively, definitely will make a difference if you're, you know, not making so many mistakes, which is one of the reasons why I can sometimes struggle with Bretonnia. But, you know, when you're having an on day, it's definitely a day to play Bretonnia, and certainly Bujalicious has been pretty on point with his abilities and timing in this game, so props to that. Love to see some excellent Bretonnian play. We'll fast forward a little bit through this endgame here as the Tzeentch player tries to scrap back to even take a single objective, but it seems pretty hopeless at this point. Rapunzel herself has taken very little damage, and there's not really much in the Tzeentch army that can directly threaten her, except, you know, grinding it out with a bunch of halberds, which even then, she's going to buff these peasants up to 45 defense, 36 attack. I mean, they outclass even like Bleak Swords at that stat line, so I love me some Rapunzel domination play, especially when you throw in some Grail Guardians, Companions of Quenelle, other Knights, and even the Men-at-Arms. Look at that, 480 value there, 447 value there. Those are some nice numbers for Men-at-Arms, certainly. And, you know, the late game Knights Errant summons also coming in, doing what they need to for support. One of the Foot Squires gets nuked there, but even still, I mean, drawing an Infernal Gateway on a 700 cost infantry in Domination is actually pretty good value, given the amount of Winds of Magic cost and the fact that you can relatively easily just resummon that cheap unit. Dozen Archers also come in, generate some really nice value, mostly unopposed, get attacked by Furies in a couple of instances, but the Cavalry of Bretonnia able to respond quickly. Battle of It's a relatively small map, so even from your regular reinforcement points, Cavalry can certainly get to the battlefield quite quickly. Flying units do well here, and if this were a land battle, flying units plus halberds might be enough to carry Tzeentch here. It's hard to say, but in Domination, of course, lack of capture weight and the fact that these ground units largely get crushed, and certainly some impressive kill totals and decently cost-effective damage out of a lot of these Tzeentch Marauders and the halberds, as you would expect. But still, I mean, none of the halberds actually pay for themselves in terms of damage output. Flamers got a few good volleys there, got pretty close, but at the end of the day, interestingly enough, just weren't quite able to do it. So I have to go back and kind of reevaluate this matchup. It's certainly an interesting one, and I still think Tzeentch maybe has a slight advantage here, but certainly Rapunzel and this sort of wide support build can be quite strong with a few key elites to mop up where needed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Certainly an enjoyable game for me to cast. Hopefully you feel the same about watching it. If you do, be sure to like this video, share it with a friend, subscribe right here, and click that bell icon so you don't miss any more videos. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.